The year is 2025. The Islamic Republic of Iran continues its iron-fisted rule. Dissidents disappear into the labyrinthine prison system. Fear is a constant companion for those who dare to question the regime. Then, on January 18th, something extraordinary happens. Two figures, feared and despised in equal measure, meet an unexpected end. Their names are Mohammad Moghayeseh and Ali Razini. News of their deaths spreads like wildfire through the digital underground of Iran. Mohammad Moghayeseh, Ali Razini. Their names are etched in the minds of many Iranians, synonymous with injustice and cruelty. Moghayeseh, with his reputation for handing down draconian sentences after perfunctory trials, becomes a symbol of the regime's contempt for due process. Razini, on the other hand, is known for his chilling pronouncements, his courtroom demeanor devoid of empathy. He seems to relish in the suffering of those who appear before him, their pleas for leniency met with scorn and mockery. They are the instruments of a system designed to crush dissent, to silence any voice that dares to challenge the absolute authority of the supreme leader. Their courtrooms are not halls of justice, but stages for show trials where the verdict is preordained and the defense is a mere formality. The news of their deaths, while met with mixed emotions, ignites a spark of hope in the hearts of many. Could this be the beginning of the end for the reign of terror? Could this be the catalyst for real change, for a reckoning with the injustices of the past? The regime has a long history of ruthlessly crushing dissent. Will these deaths serve as a pretext for even harsher crackdowns, for a wave of repression designed to instill fear and silence any whisper of opposition? The world watches and waits, holding its breath. The question remains, will this wound fester and deepen, or will it finally be allowed to heal? The news of the judge's death sends ripples through the international community, reaching Shirin Ebadi, Nobel Peace Prize laureate. From her exile, she witnesses the regime's brutality and countless shattered lives. Ebadi's words on Telegram are a beacon of truth. She mourns the lost opportunity for justice. Open, fair trials, she writes, are what they feared. The digital outcry, amplifying the voices of dissent. Social media becomes the platform for a collective outpouring of grief, anger, and a thirst for justice. The hashtag #JusticeForIran explodes into a chorus of condemnation. Tina Dami encapsulates the complex emotions swirling through the digital ether. I am glad 2 executioners are gone, she writes, but I mourn the missed opportunity to see them face justice. Section 3. A chorus of condemnation, personal tales of injustice. Former political prisoners, lawyers, and activists share their encounters with the 2 judges. Each story paints a judiciary that has abandoned fairness. Majid Dori describes Moghayeseh's courtroom as a stage for humiliation. He issued severe sentences without reading case files. Ismail Bakhshi accuses Moghayeseh of harsh sentences against Haft-Tapa workers. Bakhshi's testimony highlights the regime's control over organized opposition. Section 1. A torrent of tweets, outrage and relief. The digital realm, often a sanctuary for dissent under repressive regimes, erupts with a cacophony of voices on X, formerly known as Twitter. A torrent of tweets, many fueled by years of pent-up anger and frustration, flood the platform. Hashtags like #JusticeForIran, #Moghayeseh and #Razini trend globally, painting a stark picture of the judge's notoriety beyond Iran's borders. Many posts are raw, visceral reactions to the news, a mix of outrage and a sense of relief. Images of the 2 judges, often defaced with slogans or superimposed with the faces of their victims, circulate widely. The comment sections become virtual memorials, filled with stories of injustice, of lives shattered by the judge's rulings. Among the outpouring of anger, there are also messages of solidarity with the families of the judges' victims. Many express a longing for a day when justice will be served, not through extrajudicial killings, but through fair and transparent trials. A distant dream in a country where the judiciary operates as an arm of the regime. Virtual vigilantes, the debate on extrajudicial justice. The deaths of Moghayeseh and Razini ignite a fierce debate about the legitimacy of extrajudicial killings, even when the victims are themselves accused of heinous crimes. Some argue that the judges, having escaped accountability for their actions in life, have now faced a different kind of justice, a reckoning outside the corrupted legal system. Others, however, caution against celebrating the killings, arguing that they set a dangerous precedent. They fear that condoning such acts, even against figures as reviled as Moghayeseh and Razini, could erode the very foundations of justice and human rights that the Iranian people are fighting for. The debate spills over into online forums and comment sections with passionate arguments both for and against the killings. Some draw parallels to historical instances of vigilante justice, highlighting the dangers of operating outside the bounds of law and due process. The regime's narrative, sowing seeds of doubt. The Iranian regime is not idle. State-controlled media outlets spring into action, seeking to control the narrative. They sow seeds of doubt about the deaths, propagating conspiracy theories involving foreign powers or opposition groups. These narratives target fear and nationalism. Despite attempts to control the narrative, online outpouring shows the limits of its control. Voices from the abyss, tales of brutality and indifference. Personal stories emerge, chilling testaments to the human cost of their reign of terror. These voices reveal lives broken, families torn apart by the Islamic Republic's justice system. Hussein Razagi, a former political prisoner, recounts the sheer cruelty of Ali Razini. Razini's heartless response to a prisoner's plea for leave to visit his ill wife. Her illness is a blessing. Section 2. Razini's cruelty, a chilling glimpse into a heart of stone. Hussein. Razagi's voice trembles slightly as he recounts the memory, the scene forever seared into his mind. He speaks of a fellow prisoner, a man whose spirit had already been ground down by the relentless machinery of the Iranian judicial system. His crime? Daring to express dissent against the regime. His punishment? Months of agonizing confinement, punctuated by bouts of physical and psychological torture. This man, whose name Razagi no longer recalls, had been granted a rare moment of hope. His wife, battling a losing battle with cancer, was clinging to life, her only wish to see her husband one last time. The prisoner, clutching at this sliver of hope, had summoned the courage to approach Razini, to plead for a temporary leave, a brief reprieve from his ordeal to grant his wife's dying wish. The shadow of trauma scars that run deeper than time. Razagi and others reveal the psychological toll exacted by judges like Moghayeseh and Razini. Their cruelty extended beyond physical punishments. It left invisible scars deeper than any wound. The courtroom became a microcosm of oppression, a place where humanity was stripped away. When justice becomes a weapon. The deaths of Moghayeseh and Razini highlight a deeper malaise in Iran. The judiciary has become a tool of repression. Stories of former prisoners and activists reveal a system where trials are rushed and evidence ignored. Defense lawyers are routinely intimidated. The principles of a fair legal system have been replaced with fear and obedience. Section 2, Beyond Reasonable Doubt, the erosion of due process. One of the most disturbing aspects of the Iranian justice system, as highlighted by the cases presided over by Moghayeseh and Razini, is the blatant disregard for due process. This fundamental legal principle, which guarantees every individual a fair and impartial hearing, is routinely trampled upon in Iranian courtrooms. Trials are often rushed affairs, sometimes lasting no more than a few minutes, with defendants denied the opportunity to mount a proper defense. Evidence, when it is presented at all, is often flimsy or fabricated, designed to secure a conviction rather than to uncover the truth. Defense lawyers who dare to challenge the prosecution's case or to advocate too forcefully for their clients risk facing reprisals, including harassment, disbarment, or even imprisonment. This systematic erosion of due process has created a situation where guilt is often predetermined, where the outcome of a trial is a foregone conclusion. The courts, instead of being places where justice is dispensed, have become rubber stamps for the regime's will, tools to be used against its enemies, real or imagined. The architecture of oppression. The systemic injustices in the Iranian judiciary are deliberate. It's an architecture of oppression to maintain power. Opaque laws and vaguely defined crimes, lack of judicial independence, create opportunities for abuse. The judiciary is beholden to the supreme leader. This fosters a culture of impunity. Judges who comply are rewarded, while independent ones are punished. This creates fear and self-censorship in society. People are reluctant to speak out or demand rights. Fear grips Iran's prisons. The deaths of Moghayeseh and Razini sent shockwaves through Iranian society. For those in prison, the news ignited fear and uncertainty. The regime might seek retribution, making examples of prisoners. Known for its brutal crackdowns, the regime had a long history of responding with an iron fist. Fear was palpable, a suffocating blanket of dread. In the days and weeks following the judges' deaths, a palpable sense of anxiety permeated Iran's prisons. The usual rhythms of prison life, the clandestine exchanges of news, the shared meals, the moments of camaraderie that offered a flicker of hope in the darkness, were disrupted by a current of fear and uncertainty. Rumors swirled through the crowded cells, carried on whispers and smuggled notes. Some prisoners, clinging to hope, speculated that the deaths might signal a weakening of the regime's grip on power, a sign that change might be on the horizon. Others, hardened by years of experience, dismissed such notions as wishful thinking, warning their fellow inmates to prepare for the worst. The fear was most acute among those deemed political prisoners, journalists, activists, students, and intellectuals who had dared to challenge the regime's ideology or to advocate for basic human rights. These individuals, already targeted for their beliefs and actions, knew that they were most vulnerable to the regime's wrath. Section 3. The world is watching. A call for vigilance and action. As the spectre of retaliation loomed over Iran's prisons, human rights organizations and activists around the world sounded the alarm, urging the international community to hold the Islamic Republic accountable for the safety and well-being of its prisoners. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and other prominent NGOs issued statements condemning the Iranian regime's human rights record and calling for the immediate release of all political prisoners. These organizations stressed that the Iranian government had a legal and moral obligation to ensure the safety of all detainees and to uphold their fundamental human rights, regardless of their alleged crimes. Social media platforms, which had played a crucial role in amplifying the voices of dissent within Iran, became vital tools for raising awareness about the plight of political prisoners. Hashtags like #FreeIranianPrisoners, #StopExecution in Iran, and #CloseEvinPrison trended globally, galvanizing support and putting pressure on governments and international bodies to take action. The elusive pursuit of justice. The deaths of Moghayeseh and Razini left a void. A sense of justice deferred. These men who wielded the law as a weapon would never face a true reckoning. No trial, no chance for the truth to be laid bare. This absence of accountability highlights the impunity in the Islamic Republic's judicial system. Section 2. The seeds of change from outrage to action. The outpouring of grief, anger, and demands for justice that followed the judges' deaths has ignited a spark, a renewed sense of urgency in the fight for human rights in Iran. The world, once content to turn a blind eye to the regime's abuses, is now watching, its attention drawn to the plight of those who dare to raise their voices against tyranny. The regime, sensing this shift in the global landscape, has responded with its usual playbook of denial, deflection, and repression. State-controlled media outlets churn out propaganda, attempting to discredit the victims, justify the regime's actions, and maintain its grip on power through fear and intimidation. But something has changed. The Iranian people, emboldened by the sacrifices of those who have come before them, are no longer content to remain silent. From the streets of Tehran to the digital battlegrounds of social media, they are raising their voices, demanding accountability, and fighting for a future free from oppression. Section 3. A legacy of resistance, honoring the fallen, fighting for the future. The deaths of Moghayeseh and Razini, while tragic in their own right, must serve as a catalyst for change, a reminder that the fight for justice and human rights requires unwavering commitment, courage, and a refusal to be silenced. We must honor the memory of those who have been lost, those who have been silenced, imprisoned, tortured, and executed by the Islamic Republic. By amplifying their stories, demanding justice for their suffering, and fighting to ensure that their sacrifices were not in vain. The path ahead will be long and arduous. The Islamic Republic, with its vast resources and its machinery of repression, will not relinquish its power easily. But the tide is turning. The Iranian people, yearning for freedom and dignity, are rising up, and the world, finally awakened to their plight, must stand with them, shoulder to shoulder, until the day when justice prevails.